All right. Thank you guys for coming. This is for my English 1050 class, Introduction to Human Diversity, and this is my final project. And just thank you for coming. And I did want to give you guys introduction, if that's okay. You guys will allow me to do that. And I'll start first with Marlene, Marlene,
Melina. You can do Melina.
Marlena Wolfgram. Okay. Sorry, let me just trying to pull up my. Oh, here it is. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We have Marlena Wolfgram. She earned her PhD at San Diego State University and Claremont Graduate University Joint Doctoral Program in Education. Marlena earned her BA in Psychobiology at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and returned to her hometown of Oakland, California, and taught secondary science, where she also earned an MA in education with an emphasis in teaching at Mills College. Her research interests include Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, STEM, Pacific Islander studies, career pathways of graduate students, and graduate education. And next, I have Inoke Hafoka. Um, Inoke, you're teaching at BYU Hawaii, correct? And he's an associate professor in Pacific Island Studies for the Faculty of Culture, Language, and Performing Arts. He graduated with his doctorate in social science and comparative education from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. He earned a master's in education, culture, and society from the University of Utah and a bachelor's in sociology from Brigham Young University in Provo. And then next I have Mone Langi. He's a freshman here at Solid Community College. He's in the Multicultural Student Council chair and president of the Pacific Unity Association Club. And his major is in visual arts and design. And then I have Devita Nusi, the freshman year in college with the second term as the Thane student leader and his second term as the PUA treasurer. And I just wanted to give you guys their introduction, but I was thinking if you guys wanted to introduce us where your, because I know in our culture is like where your village is and whatever stuff like that. You want to go ahead and you can probably start with Marlena.
Thank you, Michael. That introduction was perfect. Thank you so much. So my mother's name is Pasepavi, and she actually comes from Fasi and Kolonga and Afa and Iweki. And my dad is Wolfgram. His name is Waleta Wolfgram, and he's from Vava'u, specifically Halahuli. And then his mother is from Fele. So those are the villages I come from, and I'm so proud of. Born and raised in Oakland, California. My trajectory was up and down. It was never straight. And in fact, I just want to support Nusi and Monet also that I actually kind of went back in later years and went back to school. There's just kind of like unending satisfaction that I've never completed something and I got to finish it. And so I actually came out to the U of U, didn't like it, came back to California, finished up, taught for a while. I'm like, man, I still got to go back to school. And went and got my, so there's just never, even at this level, even though I've gotten my PhD, I feel like I'm not done. I feel like I'm still navigating other systems that some of our people have crossed, but I feel like it never gets a dull moment. That's for sure. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for this. Inoke was part of the only reason I got a PhD is because of Inoke, because who calls over, hey, we should all get our PhDs. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do with my life. So he got in, and then he's like, and then as I was trying to apply to, so I wanted to go to UCLA like him. He's like, no, good. And he helped me with my application. And that's the one thing I really, truly appreciate about our people is that if we get up, we don't forget to pull the other ones up. So once he got in, he helped me with my application. And then I was able to get into my PhD program. I was able to, because we're both in Southern California, I actually got to go visit him and then I got to see what he did, and then I went back to my school and was like kind of following up. So to have his mentorship met everything, and I just hope that you guys have that same community, because without them, I probably wouldn't have finished. And so I think that's the important part about this talk. So thank you. I talked too much.
Thank you. Maybe Noke, if Noke can, Dr. Noke can proceed.
Yeah, no, thank you. My parents, my mom is from Uiha, Tonga, and my dad is from Feletoa. So both from the AAPI Islands. And came here separately, found each other in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that's where home is for me. Even though I currently reside now in Oahu, in Laie, you know, my roots go to Tonga as well as to Salt Lake City. Yeah, no, I'm just grateful to be here. Malina is giving me too much praise. I think the idea of reciprocity is something important, and so as someone that was able to give some advice in terms of the PhD application process, Malina was the one that helped everyone forward to kind of finish, because you can kind of tell, like, when you get into this stage, you kind of just, oh man, we'll push it over to the next year, and because Malina was finishing, I was like, oh fuck, we need to finish. she started after us, and she's finishing before us. So
you're welcome.
Definitely someone that has allowed us to kind of finish the whole process. And so but yeah, it's good to be here and be reconnected with Mone, with Nusi, as well as with you, Mike. I think it's just going down memory lane before we started this. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Doctor. And then maybe Mone and then Vika. That's okay.
So like Mike said, my name is Mone Langi. My parents are Devita Langi from Pea, and my mom is Luciana Langi from the great island of Vaini. So those are where my parents come from. They were married in Tonga and then moved here in the 70s to Utah. And so I'm actually from West Valley City, Utah, and born and raised. And I think just to go off of what that you have said, I think me and Lucy are in a good spot to help guide the younger generation through higher education. Being older adult students is what I heard them calling is adult students. Being able to be an example and maybe also an enforcer to our younger students who are just graduating high school or even returning back. We can set that precedence for them to understand that they can succeed in these types of spaces. So.
Thank you, Money. That's too much credit. I don't know. Adult student. I think I'm more of a child student than anything. But anyways, my name is Devita Nusi. My father is Miriami Nusi from the Kolos of Takamotonga. We are the Vaihoi and the Lelenoa clan out in the Takamotonga. And my mother is Shriote Kolavaya. She is the great-granddaughter of Vaya, Lord Vaya. And they are from Leimatu of Vava'u. That was their inheritance from as far as being part of the Vaya line. And give praises to the deities of my family as the shark god, Taufatahi. And then also, I'm glad that I got to reconnect with Noke here. I see Noke, Noke, I'm just like Marlene too. I seen you get your doctors. I seen Ulysses get his doctorate. And I actually wrote Ulysses and I said, you know what, man, you inspired me to go back to school and go get my doctors myself. So the following semester, I signed up for school and went back. And luckily, I ran into Ulysses again at Slick as a director there now. And I was like, all right, like this is for reals now. I gotta graduate. Not only did I write this guy, I'm gonna go get my doctor. He's also the director of the school that I'm currently going to. So as far as Pacific history, I'm also tied with Mike, as far as our why line. So thank you for this invitation, Mike, and thank you, Marlene. You are also an inspiration to me now in my life. So thank you. I'd like to hear more and catch up to you with all your information. And thank you to Monet, Doctor, and hopefully we can get this going.
Thank you guys. Yeah, this is for my class, and our teacher allowed us to choose the topic. And our class is I've been I've been learning some new terms, and it was like, wow, I didn't know these words. But something that I learned about was like institutions and cultural hegemony and like culture capital. So I didn't know that until this class. So I was kind of thinking about how I could incorporate that into for my final project. I guess kind of focusing how those influence. And then I remember we were celebrating AAPI month at Slick because in April, because I guess because May, our semester ends in May. And I remember they gave us the shirt at one of the activities, and it said AAPI, and I was like, man, I just want my shirt to say PI instead of. I mean, I guess that's the backstory of. And I was like, man. And then my teacher said we get to choose our topic, and then I chose that topic. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. That's what I wanted to be our discussion about. And I guess the first question can be whoever wants to answer, and like why should we be separated as PI from the AA or the category?
Going okay?
um, maybe to give it's a good question. I think to give some context, during kind of the early civil rights movements, and things were kind of slowly coming about in terms of recognizing racial distinctions from different groups and peoples. Pacific Islanders were kind of a small population that people kind of understood or didn't know too much about. And, in terms of purposes of numbers, our Asian American brothers and sisters decided to join forces in a sense to push through some of the issues that all our communities were kind of going or experiencing. And so that's slowly how the AAPI type of connection happened. But as time has gone on, we're getting to this stage right now in history where, there's a good, decent amount of representation and numbers regarding Pacific Islander communities. And so it makes it very difficult to really see the nuances and issues of Pacific Islanders when we're aggregated together with the Asian American population. And so one easy example is is diabetes an issue for the AAPI community? And for us, we'd be like, of course. But when you're looking at it the whole, and you're including numbers from the Asian American community, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, no one would say anything. And our numbers with Pacific Islanders aren't as big as the Asian American population. And so, it kind of gets hidden. And so then the aspect of really understanding the issues within our Pacific Islander community, unless we disaggregate it, meaning separate it away from the Asian American grouping, then we'll be able to kind of see those things. But even within the Asian American population, man, there's so much, AAPI, if you're looking at it in a global scale, that's almost a third of the world that you're clumping together in one category, and how do you really find out the issues that are existing within the different groupings, unless you're the majority. It's almost like Polynesia in a sense. everyone knows about Tonga, Samoa, Hawaii, Aotearoa, but then do people know much about Uvea and
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Do people
Yep.
know too much about like Tuvalu, all
Yep.
these other places that don't get as much headway. And so, those are some of the reasoning why, going back to the question of why there's a need to separate AA and PI.
Yeah. I just want to add to, okay, so just to kind of like also remember AAPI includes over 50 groups. And within those 50 groups, all our challenges and our experience, there's going to be some similarities. But we also bring a different cultural aspect, a different cultural experience of like the diaspora, right? And are those being addressed when we go to school? Because they'll see us like, oh, AAPIs, you guys are fine. So for instance, I'm interested in looking at STEM. And according to research, AAPIs are overrepresented. Now, if I disaggregate that, if you do like Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, it gets even smaller. So if I disaggregate, Asians are about 50%. Like they're getting degrees in it. But if you look at the PIs, we're only like 5%. When you put us together, you can't. They're not going to see that. Oh, why aren't there more Pacific Islanders graduating? Why are they not in STEM? But if you put us together, it totally messes up the picture. And so I think that's what Inoka is kind of going to, is like putting us together doesn't help us to get the support and services that we need. And then understanding that we're not all alike, right? So that's all I wanted to add to it.
And just kind of add to what they were saying, Mike, I think the model that they were presenting is the minority model, the saying that because these minorities are super good at school, but then are they really looking at the minority because they're just grouping us with the Asians, and the Asians are minority model students and people. But as far as the Pacific Islanders, it won't show the systemic barriers that we're facing.
Yep.
Is what we're kind of trying to touch on.
Agreed. Yeah. Interesting. I was just at the AAPI conference. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It's called Asian Pacific American in Higher Ed. And so we're starting Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders are actually trying to break off. And we had our first meeting there this week in Oakland. And man, this Samoan sister got up and was all like, I've been here when AAPI started. We have never had an all Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander panel. Our name is in your program, but you don't see us represented in the board. You don't see us represented in these workshops, not even on the program. And she had like posted up pictures, like different program things at the, like kind of like their flyers and stuff. Nothing Pacific Islander. And so it was kind of, I was like, oh yeah, I've been feeling that, like, are they just using us to put our name in there, But what was really great is that we met afterwards and had all Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. And now we're deciding to have our own little, like, one-day professional development, helping to kind of not separate us. But I feel you want to ask the same question. Are we comfortable because, the Asians do everything and all I gotta do is just sit back and chill? Or are we finally having to step up to the plate and kind of see us step into the plate? They're asking for volunteers. I was trying to shy away. And then they were like, Melina. And I was like, yeah, I'll help out. So that's the other part. If we are willing to separate, what are you planning to do with that? Are you going to advocate, or are you just going to sit back and wait for the next person to come up, right? So.
Thank you. I guess I have another question, like, who, if we don't separate, or who controls that? And if we don't separate, who benefits from that? If we, they keep us in that same, I guess, who, like an institution, or like, I guess that's my question. Who benefits from that? And I guess what's your view, or what do you guys think?
I think in like the lens of a multicultural sense, in a broad scale, and you look at each population, Asian Americans aren't. I don't know if I'm going to say this the right way, but Asian Americans aren't seen as, like, for lack of a better word, like dumb people, right? Like when you see an Asian, that they're going to be good at math. The stereotypes behind them are actually, they're going to be business owners and things like that. And so when we're grouped, and I think from what you guys are saying, when we're grouped together, I feel like we as PI get the shorter end of the stick, because of that history behind the Asian American culture itself. And so to answer your question, Mike, I think that of course we would be the ones that would take lesser than the Asian American, in which I feel like if we were to separate from that identification, then it would allow us to step up to the plate, like what Marlene was saying, for us to be able to prove ourselves as a community. Whereas when I was going to Slick back in 2008, there was probably only 3 PI staff that worked here on campus. Latu Kinikini was one of them, Wulunga, and then Sani Pahu. Those are the 3. And then Senorita, she also worked here. So there was maybe a handful, maybe 5. Versus returning back to school now and seeing that there's probably over 30 plus staff now, that are like Ulysses, Alici, Bernice, Owa. There's a lot more resources available for us to be able to swim now, and be able to make a name for ourselves. Because I feel like we kind of piggyback off of the Asian American population, yet we still have our own cultural, aspects that we bring to the table that a lot of the community likes to learn and to experience. So I think that it would be us. They would be the one that would take more so versus us. So
I was gonna say, the impact on the future generations is gonna be where it's gonna be at, because once we're separated from the Asian Pacifics, we can actually lobby now and create Congress laws and laws that would help our specific barriers for the Pacific Islander instead of all Asian and Pacific Islanders. The community will be able to get their specific laws to break those barriers within our communities. That's what I say is the impact on the future generation is going to be great once we get that separation.
I guess I'm afraid of how small the numbers will be, right? Because when it comes to politics, it's all about numbers, right? They're going to play that number game. So there's a part of me that still wants to be with them, and I'm not going to lie, just because they've got the people to work for. But like you said too, Mone, that we need to step up to the plate. So what does that look like, right? But that's the only thing I'm afraid of is like, I don't know. Tell me, Nelson, what do you think? Because I feel like that small number, are we going to be that much of priority, or just kind of like, oh, here's another, small group?
We're 1.4 right now.
Million.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think this is where collaboration kind of kicks in. It's good to, what the hard part is, we're always trying to find information about our own selves, but how do we find ways to connect with other organizations or other groups? For me, there's the Asian, we're kind of talking about it right now with Asian Americans and the model minority, but also recognizing it as a myth in a sense, because if we don't really understand the Asian American grouping and how many ethnic groups exist within that, we're eliminating, Southeast Asians who may not be as solid in terms of their workload within, but then they're grouped with as an Asian, they're expected to be the idea like good at math and all that stuff. And so they get hidden in a sense, like, right, how we're talking about Pacific Islanders. And so I think if we don't push against the model minority and look at it as a myth, then the Asian community gets kind of pigeonholed and gets looked at as like, oh, you're the expected way of how people need to be in when they come into this country. And so I think understanding other groups and their challenges, one, allows us to find more commonality and similarities that exist within our different communities, but also we can be supportive when it comes to issues that arise within these different groupings or identities, right? We might not embody all of them, but at least we can show up. You know, if we're wanting people to show up for Pacific Islanders, oh, we better go show up for other people too. And so I think only then will people then feel like there's a importance of wanting to know things about Pacific Islanders and our issues. But you know, if we just continue to stay in our silos and not really seek to better understand others, you know, this is going to be a long it's like that.
Well said, well said.
Thank you guys. I was like when I learned about cultural capital, and I was thinking about when I grew up. I was like, dang, this it's kind of now it kind of makes sense. And I remember one time me and my brother we went to when we were going to Glendale, and my dad was dropping us off in the yate truck, and we were like, oh, just just pull up, so turn down the street and drop us off, you know, so we can walk in front. And because you know everybody's gonna clown, everybody was clown at Glendale, but it reminded me like, you know, growing up, with I didn't know what culture capital was, but yeah, it's like it can be material things like that, like you know, like a beat up truck or a uh, um, nice car, and then that trickles into like you know, learning and going into school. And I came across what I was researching about, and I came across an article about a Tongan girl, Telly Hafoka, and I was reading the article, she was explaining how she was going to school, and like they thought she was Asian, so they didn't really help her. And then she played basketball,
Mm.
And then going to college, and you know, it was a struggle because there was no one to help her, you know, to help her to, I guess, like go fill out the this or do this. And I guess my question is like, um, does your guys' story relate to, you know, this topic, or I guess like what Telly Afoka went through? And that's my question. Does your story relate to this topic and then going through, you know, the barriers?
I was gonna say, I think I really, just like you, Mike, what you were saying, I didn't look down at my parents, but when I compared them to my friends whose parents went to college and whatnot, you know, I don't want to say there was a certain kind of shame, but I didn't appreciate it till I got older. And I was struggling in community college, and I was struggling at UC Santa Cruz. I was struggling at Mills College. Then I got to reflect and look at my own parents. I'm like, man, how did they figure out how to get a house? Like that's cultural capital. How did they figure out how to get jobs when they first got here, right? I had to figure out, like, man, I find myself, you know, because the only thing my parents told me was like, hey, you're going to college. But they didn't tell me how. They said, you're going to college because that's why grandpa wants one of his grandkids to go to, and that stuck in my head. And every time I got my grades, my parents looked at my grade, okay, good. You're not done yet. Go back and don't forget, you got to go to college. And I wonder if it was the same thing for them. Like they knew they just need to come to America. I don't know whether they had a plan or not, but they figured it out. And that instilled in me, like, okay, that's a different kind of cultural capital from what my American-born friends are having. Different kind of cultural capital, but it has to be that way, right? Because our experiences of coming into the diaspora, coming to America, is different. And so I feel because of that, I think that always pushed me. That was my leverage. And my mom always said, "I take a holoto que toa." That's what she always told me. I que toa. You know, like don't give up. That's what she always told me, because she knew when I was about to crack, and she knew she couldn't help me, but those simple words carried me. And so I just remember, like, when things got tough, that's what I always remember, just stay tough. But that cultural capital, it may not be the same thing, but to see my parents buy a house, that means, hey, I need to figure out how to get into college. Oh, they got jobs. Oh, I got to figure out how do I get my degree. Of course they don't know, you know, but I used that and had to kind of like make it relevant to my struggles that I was dealing with, if that makes any sense.
I think I was blessed with a large cultural capital, being raised the way that I did, and from like Marlene said, you know, um, my my parents taught us about credit when we were growing up, not knowing what it was, and the importance of um, creating the habit of paying your dues, and obligations to what you've decided to be a part of. And so I've I've learned, and I like Marlene, I see now, like, dang, how did they learn all of these things, that not even the normal person in high school learns, you know, they don't learn until later on in life. And so a lot of who I am today stems from what my parents has taught me, growing up, not only with religion but also with skills and how to interact with others, and how to present yourself. I think they played a big part in me being able to connect with a lot of people, by the way that they would exemplify through their actions. You know, and so I, I, and my siblings, I feel like we have gained so much skills and values from our parents because of the way that they taught us, and a lot of things that they taught us um, wasn't the normal Tongan way. I think they adapted quickly to like re-socializing into American life. I think they're able to navigate through the country here, and then be able to quickly identify that we need to teach our kids this, the importance of a penny, of a dollar, and to save. And you know, growing up, we went to the DI and we got clothes. And when we went there, I assumed that it was like the coolest thing to get new shoes from the DI, you know. And so looking back, I learned that it wasn't something new, but it's the way that my parents would portray our having possessions is the value, or where you buy it from is not as important of actually having it to utilize, you know, on your daily life. So I think I've been blessed and lucky. So
I'm just going to quickly add, I think the other part of cultural capital I feel like that our culture does is that we believe in reciprocity, which I brought up as well. I passed it down to my sister. So when I was done, I told my sister, this is what you're doing: financial aid, find a job on campus. And she finished college faster than I did. And that was the point, right? And so when I think Noke knew I was struggling, you know, trying to apply for school, because he just out of randomly, hey, how's the application going? I'm like, I just got turned down for these schools. He goes, okay, let's try this approach. But that's the thing about cultural capital. It's only, I think in our value system, it only means something when you can pass it down to the next person, right?
Thank you guys. I had another question. Then this has popped up. Like, with everything going on with American Idol, with Ian Tongi, like, do you think like this topic can be like kind of, piggyback off of his kind of, bringing awareness to Polynesian people, kind of, and then like Vito said, kind of we can start lobbying stuff like that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think EM is definitely bringing awareness to a group of people. You know, he is his I guess if you want to break it down in terms of who he is, you know, he's a Tongan kid that was born and raised in Hawaii. Then he ends up having to, you know, he loses his father, has moved to Washington for the past couple of years. He's a high school student. And so all these different layers and factors kind of kick in. And, you know, if you're looking at it from a Pacific Islander context, you know, what does that mean for a Tongan kid to live in Hawaii, you know, who's away from the motherland? What is Hawaii's connection to the US, you know, what's Hawaii's history? You know, they're not the same thing. You know, a lot of people look at him and they think he's Hawaiian, but you know, he's a Tongan kid. But you know, the lack of understanding in terms of what Tongans are, or who Tongans are, you know, it's easier to clump it together or clump it as Hawaii because that's what a lot of people have context to here in the US. Why? Oh, because Hawaii has become a state or illegally became a state, depending on who you're talking to. um, Now you have that history to kind of look at too, you know, and then I think there's a lot of things to, you know, he talks about this idea of priced out of paradise. What does that mean? You know, what's going on in Hawaii that he gets priced out of paradise, you know, and has to move to Washington. So there's layers of people's stories that he brings up just being him, and now is being exposed in American Idol in a good way, you know. I think we can use those opportunities to kind of look at identity, and sense of culture, history, to kind of better understand, you know, nuances. Again, he's just one person, but if he brings up all those factors as one person, what does this mean when you meet a whole bunch of Pacific Islanders? What are the stories that kind of come from that? And so, yeah, we can definitely find ways to look at, you know, this topic by just looking at Iem Tongi.
I maybe have just one more question. I remember I would sometimes I run into people like when I go to the workout classes, and I was like, oh, I just go to school. I went back to school, and then the guy, you know, Polynesian guy, and he was like, oh, school's not for me, and I was like, and I was just like, man, where does that come from? Like, is it like coming from, you know, society, or like kind of, was it just personal, or kind of all the things that, you know, we learned, the disparities and that, you know, push us down, especially being minorities. And what do you guys, what is your thoughts, or whatever?
There's a so the article I shared with you all, I kind of share a story in there. Maybe the story kind of connects to what you're asking, Mike. So in the very beginning of the paper, I kind of talk about how I'm named after my grandfather, and his name is Inoke. And I had the chance to go and visit Feletoa, where my grandfather is from. And when I got there, they're like, "Oh, koe moko puna e ni a tutu Fale." And I was like, "Oh, this is the grandson of Burning House." And I was like, "Man, why are they calling my grandpa Burning House?" He goes, "Oh, when you get back to America, go ask him." So I was like, "All right." I get back to America, Utah, and I interview my grandpa or talk to my grandpa, and he goes, "Why they call you Tutu Fale?" And he kind of has like a little smirk, and he kind of looks down, and then he was like, "When I was young, my mom wanted me to go to school. I didn't want to go to school. She said, 'Hey, I'm going to do some errands. When I come back, you better be at school.' So my great grandmother leaves. She comes back and still sees my grandfather at the house. And she looks at him. She's like, 'I told you to go to school. What are you doing here?' She's like, 'I did, but the school's on fire.' Um, did they know like my grandfather's the one that that burned the school down? Now, um, proud to be named after my grandfather. Now I going from that, you know, trying to connect it to what you're asking, Mike, is like I asked him afterwards, why did you want to burn down the school? And his answer was, because I didn't like being in one place for so long, for so many hours, and then I didn't like getting disciplined at school. Now, if you break those things down a little bit more, the idea of discipline may be a learned behavior from schools, meaning, you know, did we really, you know, was corporal punishment really part of our culture, or was this something that was learned from schools? Because if he didn't like getting disciplined at school, was he not getting disciplined at home in the same type of way? So was this a learned behavior? You know, when you talk to other people around the rest of the world, it seems like everyone knows what the belt means. It seems like everyone knows what certain things mean when they see it. Anyways, and I asked him too, he didn't like being in the same place. So what does that mean to you then? He's like, oh, I like going to Uta. I like going to Tahi, these different places to go do work, and recognizing that those were also educational experiences that wasn't necessarily meant just for school. And so when people say these ideas of, oh, school's just not meant for me, it's not their fault. To me, it's on a critical perspective of recognizing and understanding what does schools do to make sure that it allows students to succeed. School shouldn't be made to push people out, you know, especially if you look at the Tongan word for school. You know, you learn this from Konai Elufemin, a Tongan scholar. I learned this from Moana Uluave Hafoka. And she was like, what is school? What is the term school in English? Or yeah, in Tongan. How would you maybe I'll ask you guys, how do you say school in Tongan?
AAPI.
So if you break that down, api means home, ako means to study or to learn. So if the school doesn't feel like a home of learning or home of study, then it's not really something that we want to be a part of, you know. Then the question then becomes, how do we make school an apiako? How do we make this a place where people feel good to come and study, feel good to come and learn? And again, some homes aren't the best, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
tell it to be like, oh yeah, man, home is, you know, sometimes school's the place where people run to because home is the best idea. But the ideal way of how we want to look at home, what does that look like? And how do we find ways to incorporate within schools? So maybe that's, you know, when people say school's just not for me, I think we have to find ways to make school fit for us. And so, yeah, hopefully that answered that.
I think I have a lot of friends that they're either like entrepreneurs, or they're trying to run their own business and stuff like that. And so when I also talk to them about me going back to school, then you know, some of them are I feel like maybe society as a whole, that schools kind of taking a step, like a backseat, higher education, because of the way like social media has pumped out other ways to make money. You know, and so I know I have a lot of friends that are in those realms of success where they've been able to skip the classroom and be able to make a living for themselves, but it wasn't through getting like a degree. Um, I, I'm a firm believer that there are different avenues to success, and that maybe the most traditional way to success has been the classroom, higher education. And given that time has changed now, and you know, there's a lot more access to information and knowledge out there, that some people they may not want to go to the traditional 2-year, 4-year college, you know. And one thing that Slick excels in is its trade and technological aspect or side of school, where people can learn to plumb and people can learn to be an electrician, HVAC, and get certified.
Vocational.
Yeah, vocational schools where they can just go to class for maybe a little bit and then be able to do the work that they enjoy. And so, but when they do tell me that school isn't for me, I feel like school can be like what Inoka says. School can be anywhere. Where in our lens, it's, you know, it's in the classroom, it's in higher education, versus there may be like an apprenticeship that somebody may be plumbing. I have brothers that plumb, that have been plumbing for years now. And their vocation did take them back to the classroom where they had to get certified to be a journeyman, and a foreman, you know, in hopefully in the future. So when I tell them that school isn't for me, I always believe that although there are different avenues to success, you will find yourself in an AAPI. You know, you'll find yourself where you need to learn a certain skill, or certain things that will get you to your next step in life. So I think, to go off of what Inoki was saying, is that whenever they see school, they see more of the formal education where you're going to sit in the classroom, and luckily in the U.S. we don't get disciplined like they do in Tonga, but to be able to learn in different forms of you know, of whatever degree they're going to go for, or vocation or trade, then that's something that should be emphasize or celebrate. Because I agree. Like, I have a brother, he doesn't like school, and that's okay. You know, it's okay not to like to go to a school where you have to sit in a classroom, but there will be a time where you need to learn. And I think that's where education is so vast, is because it comes in different forms and different ways.
So me and my brother, we make this like joke. So I went to school all these years. I'm making pretty good money. My brother goes and does waste management and makes more than I do. He goes, Dad, I didn't have to go to school and make more than you. But just that thing, he loves driving trucks. He loves being in the community, and to see him thrive is more important. I used to always hate it when parents go, hey, tell my kids to go to school, go to college. I go, no, I don't do that. I always ask the kid, what do you like to do? Because to me, just like you guys are saying, education is an education, whether it's inside the school or outside of school.
I'd just like to add, I was one of those students that didn't think education was for me. I dropped out in 9th grade, like my second month of East High. Noki knows I wasn't a model student. I thought I was Wild Wild West again, Billy the Kid. And so, but when I decided to do things for myself, Mike, I decided to start my own business, right? And so when I went into the business world, I went up head to head against actual business students. And I realized my shortcomings against these guys. And I was like, man, I got to go back to school. I cannot be like the bottom businessman. I'm trying to be the top businessman. And that's where, even though like I knew that school wasn't for me, my life, everything around me has to go that way to go get educated. And especially if you have ambition, if you have aspirations for a better future, you want to make differences in your community, you want to be an advocate, you have to take the school approach to even open your mind philosophically, in a humanities type of way, a social injustice type of way, everything. Education has all those manuals. And so I feel like education is the most important thing, and that's how everybody can break it. I do like your approach, Noki, how you said apiako. Never would have thought about it like that. That if it's not something homely or familiar to us as far as being at home, then we are ta'alato, because that's, for me, that's what it was. I never felt that acceptance of that's a home to me. It's just a place to go hang out, get a lunch, and let's go do some bad stuff. You know, that was it. But I like you guys' approach, so thank you guys for opening that up to me.
DC, you remind me of a sense of belonging. That's what I was kind of hearing. you didn't
Right.
find your sense of belonging.
Well, I think that's it. Thank you guys for joining today. And man, I'm really thankful for Inoke, Dr. Hafoka and Dr. Wolfgram, and then my two brothers here. Man, everything you guys said, it's so, it's, I love it. And whereas like Noka said, like still working together with the Asian communities to still, still keep that bond. And then I like Vita said, once we break off, we can start, lobbying. And it's so informational and to me. And I owe you guys some Baleti Mekai from
Oh,
Pacific,
Pacific
Pacific Seas. Well, I know these two are here, but when you guys come back in town, I'll hit
I'm
you
gonna
up.
call you, Mike. I'm gonna call you.
Yeah, when you
hit him
guys,
up.
because like kind of like I think Inoki said, we have to when we do things for people, and then do them for back and help them back or whatever. But yeah, I owe you guys something, collecting that guy or like whatever. This is a big thank you.
I'll send you my Venmo.
Oh, shoot. Oh, dude, I don't have Venmo.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you guys for joining today. And it's okay if I'm gonna turn this in from my class. Just wanted to get your consent.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Marley, Wolfgram, Dr. Hafoka. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate
you,
guys'
Lucy.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noke.
Yeah.
See you, Mike. Malo Pito.
Yeah. And don't be a stranger when I come see y'all. I'll be like, hey,
Right.
what's up?
Come, actually, if you'd like to come over to Slick, we would love to have you present to our club at any time. So I'm gonna take your word on that, Marlena or Dr.
Okay.
Wolfgram.
Okay. Next time I'm in Utah, I'll let you guys know.
Perfect.
All right. All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Take care. Good to see you, Noke. Thank
Good to see
you.
you.
Mode.
All right,
Noke.
Bye.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, Malo, Togo, you over there at ODMA?
Yeah, I'm about to bounce in a little bit though. Are you here on campus?
No, I'm at home.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in doctor's office.
Okay.